What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of the Hacksaw Hour.
Hey, Marcus, how you doing, brother? I know you. Go ahead and get your introductions in. You're Marcus D'Angelo, and I'm Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And of course, you couldn't get it done without Hacksaw Jim Duggan. That makes a lot of sense, brothers. It's just the Hacksaw Jim Duggan show.
Who else would I do?
Might go a lot smoother if I wasn't here.
I don't think.
I had to start fired up. I watched some of the other shows and some of the other guys. It sounds like they're going to work at a salt mine. Well, hello, Marcus. Nice to see you again, and I guess we'll have to answer some questions and do some work. Brother, it's a Hacksaw Hour.
That's right.
I'm fired up a little bit, baby.
Fired up. Yeah, man. Yeah. You're like my beacon of hope, You're the exciting one. You're the podcast.
Well, I like to have fun, man. And those other guys too. I like to bust their chops, Like I said, every time I see Jake, I take his pulse. Jake, you okay, brother?
He just turned 70 the other day. How about that?
Well, that's what he says. So nobody has seen Jake's birth certificate.
Well, brother, we've got something really.
That's my line. I say Flair and Hogan call me kid, and Jake says he's younger, but I want to see a birth certificate, brother. Hey, and Marcus, since we've seen each other or talked to each other, it's been Memorial Day, and I tell you that's always something special to me, and of course nothing to like the folks that have people in the military. But I sent you a picture of Arlington Cemetery, and that's someplace everybody should try to go sometime, man. It's a moving experience to stand there and just look at all the tombstones and crosses and stars, and then I tell you what was really great was the tomb of the unknown soldier. I mean, just the atmosphere around there. But those I think they're Marines that are actually the guards. They may be Army. I'm not sure who's the actual, or they may even switch it up. I'm not sure. But to watch those guys march in any kind of weather and hurricanes and anything, man, it's some place to go and something to think about. Everybody, Memorial Day, break out the grill, But it's always good to think of those guys. It sure is.
It is. And yeah, it's, I've been guilty of it when I was a younger man. It's like, oh, cool, I don't have to go to school today, or all right, I don't have to go to work today. But the real reason behind it is,
especially if you get people in the military, people say, well, Hacksaw, you never were in the military. I said, well, you don't have to be in the military to love your country. No. But of course, Memorial Day, those folks is something different. It's like growing up in a cops family. I know how it is to grow up in a cops family. To grow up in a military family's got to be something different, more challenging. And then also, since I've talked to you, man, we're in Kentucky. But we just did it was the night before the show. We're sitting in a hotel room in a casino hotel in bed. It's about 10:30, after Wheel of Fortune, Deborah and I go to sleep nowadays, But anyway, we're in bed, all of a sudden it's like, weather alert, tornado in area. And then about 2 seconds later, guys pounding on the door. Evacuate, get down to the casino, I'm like, because, the weather was getting bad, and because we had this beautiful window, overlooking. You could see the storm, the lightning getting closer. And I was sitting there, I said, well, if it gets bad, honey, we'll get it in the bathroom. And then it got a little worse. And I said, well, if it gets really bad, we'll go to the hallway. About a minute later, the guy's like, evacuate. Yeah, we'll go to the casino. We're out of here. Shit. And of course, with huge tragedy for those folks in Kentucky that got hit with that natural disaster. Tornado's tough. That's why it's terrifying. The weather out was bad, winds blowing, the rain's going, stuff is blowing over. Is the tornado here? Is it coming? It's a hurricane, here it comes. At least get a little bit of a warning, a tornado, earthquake, something like that's kind of scary. So, yeah, it's been an eventful time since I've talked to you.
Man, there has been a lot going on. And yeah, it made me laugh that they evacuated you guys to the casino, because it's like, you guys are safe here, but make sure that you spend some money while you're at it.
You're in the casino now here at 11:30 at night. But nobody had no money. Everybody's in the pajamas. And Deborah got on, and we're going down. Deborah's on, you don't have your shoes. I said, leave those people alone, honey. You need your shoes in a disaster. Go
She's always
down
ready
the
for everything.
stairs. Reminds me years ago, we're in Boston Logan Airport. We're at the Hilton, New Year's Eve, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and if there's a fire, there's an actual fire. You know, you could open the hall, and the smoke was in. It was just a fire in a janitor's locker. But anyway, there was smoke and everything, so they're evacuating everybody. I'm with Deborah and a bunch of the boys. I'm the happy drunk going down the stairs. I got the bottle. I got everybody. Let's take a picture. I got pictures. Everybody's like this.
At least you were having a good time.
I was having a great time. We're going down to evacuate like 2:30 in the morning. I was still partying, man. Kurt Hennig was there. God bless him. Kurt was with me. That's who it was. Yeah.
There's a great photo of you and Kurt floating around out there, and you guys are like sitting at this table. You're wearing sunglasses.
We're on a boat. Yeah, we're fishing on a boat. Yeah, Boss Man was with us, and Barry Darceau. Barry Darceau was with us on that fishing trip, deep sea fishing trip we went on.
We're going to be talking about Barry Darceau a little bit today and his role as the Blacktop Bully in WCW, because we're throwing it back to 1995, 30 years ago in WCW, to talk about June 95 and the Great American Bash. We're going to be picking it up right after Super Brawl of that year. So I know that a lot of the listeners are going to say, like, Marcus, you never covered Starrcade 94 or Super Brawl 95. We'll get there, folks. Jim and I are going to be doing this podcast for what, probably
sometimes they had a Great American Bash and I wasn't on the show. How can you have a Great American Bash without Hacksaw Jim Duggan on the card, tough guy? Of course, Bischoff, or even worse, Russo. Forget it.
Oh, yeah.
But go ahead with Joe.
Yeah, we've got some really great stuff here. Coming out of Super Brawl, it looks like WCW is going with you and Meng for the next pay-per-view, which is uncensored. And during a match with Arn Anderson, Meng is going to interfere. You'll grab your 2x4, hit him with it, break it over his head, and he's going to no-sell it. So, Jim, I've got to ask, I know that you're protective of your gimmick, and rightfully so, you should be. What did you think of the creative of Meng no-selling the 2x4?
Yeah, not that much, I mean, it was, late. I think people micromanage too much, It's going to kill you. Brody said, you can't kill me off. Beat me every night. Put everybody over me. You kill, okay, I'll get my heat some other way. Just put me on camera. I'll get my stuff over. So I wasn't worried. I broke it over Andre's back. I broke it over Minger's head. And then Meng and I go back to like 1980. We were friends from way, way back. And, and so I didn't mind putting Meng over.
At least,
and I think down the road, I think I beat Meng for the crown, didn't I?
That was that was 6 years prior. You beat Meng to become the king of the WWF. Yep.
Yeah, so he did the favor for me. I mean, it's nowadays it's a different business. I felt so many people are so worried about their can't do that. I can't do that. That's the trouble with people leaving the territory. I'm old school. On the way out, you put the guy over.
Yeah.
You're leaving the territory, you put the guy over. But now people look beyond wrestling. And, of course, back then you'd go to another territory and get over somewhere else. And then now there's, only 1 or 2 games in town.
People started to get really weird about it, like because of the national TV exposure, where they're like, well, you can't have this guy beat me on national TV. I can't hide from that. It's not like losing in the territories. It's like, yeah, but if you're a good enough performer, you can keep your heat, or you can keep the audience behind you, right?
Yeah, that Brody told me. He says, yeah, get beat every night. He get beat at 1, 2, 3 in the middle. He'd get up, he'd beat the hell out of the babyface, beat the hell out of the referee, get the timekeeper. He get his heat back, Yeah, go ahead. Put 1, 2, 3. That's my whole line. I don't care if I win the match, long as I win the fight, tough guy.
That's right.
That kind of gimmick works because we're not technical guys. My wife, people say, Hacksaw, what was your favorite move? That I kick and punch. What are you talking? I carry a 2x4. What's my favorite move? Talk to Brett about favorite moves. I kick and punch.
You were good about staying over because, like, you'd take a loss to somebody, but then at the end, you're standing there with your 2x4.
I put everybody over sooner or later. They use me, especially WCW. They use me to put everybody over.
Yep.
I always had that mindset. They send me my check. and I'll get my stuff over. The janitor, that was the whole deal about the janitor. They figured that would kill me off. Janitor gimmick got over.
Got over. So did Team Canada. Got over.
Yeah,
weirdly.
I mean, yeah, that's what I said. Do what you want. Give me my TV time. You know, they said, well, Duggan, you got to clean Vince Russo's toilet with a toothbrush. I'm like, okay. So the day came to clean the toilet, you know, everybody expected this. You know, I poured a Diet Coke in it. I'm cleaning the toilet. Oh! Embrace it.
Yes, that's it. And I think that other guys could learn from that. Like we've talked about Terry Taylor here before and how he didn't.
And Akeem, the two differences. Akeem, one man gang, Terry Taylor, Red Rooster. Two different guys, two different acceptance of the gimmicks.
Yep. Now, I do think that things get weirder here with you and Meng. At Uncensored, they're going to have the two of you in a martial arts match, Jim. Who booked that shit? What is a martial arts match?
I think they were really trying to kill me off, not just in the business. They wanted Meng to just go ahead and finish my ass off, man.
Because everybody looks at Jim Duggan and thinks like martial arts. We gotta get this guy karate match.
Yeah, well, that was I tell you, back when I first went in WCW, me and Regal, you know, where we would get real long, he'd be like, European uppercut. Boom! And he rocked the shit out of you. Mm-hmm. American overhand. Boom!
You know, Regal was notoriously like stiff, and that was like the style in Britain where you're kind of laying it in. When that's happening, I mean, you're giving it back, I assume, right? Where it's like, okay.
Yeah. Me and Regal worked back in when I first came in WCW, and we exchanged. We were always, polite to each other, but yeah, our matches were believable.
Nothing wrong with that. You know, there's no missing teeth or broken nose. That's fine.
No, but everything was laid in pretty stiff. Yeah. Him and Foley, or not Foley, Finley.
Yes, Finley was rough too.
Yeah, they were tight, man. Yeah, and they, you know, I was an outsider. They were their little group with WCW and Bischoff and all that. Yeah,
there were a lot of cliques in WCW at this time. We're gonna get into that.
No, my buddies are dead. Doc, Gordy, Piper. Nobody wants to ride with me anymore.
I'll ride with you, Jim. I'll make it.
You're like, Doug, you want to ride? No, that's okay, man.
So I do think it's worth noting that during this period, you're going to team up with Johnny B. Bad and Dustin Rhodes on WCW Saturday Night against the Blacktop Bully, Barry Darsow, Bunkhouse Buck, and Dick Slater. I don't think we're going to have a ton of opportunities to talk about Johnny B. Bad here on the program. So now's our chance, Jim. What did you think of him and his Little Richard gimmick?
Yeah, I mean, he did his deal. You know, I didn't mind it one way or the other. He was actually barred my 2x4 a couple of times to stand on for interviews.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Not a tall guy, I take it?
Not a tall guy, yeah. Of course, a lot of guys had loaded boots back then, you know. They're a lot taller in the ring than they are in the shower.
Look at like those 2-inch lifts in there.
And then on the outside, they got the 2-inch heel, and then they got the 2-inch lifts on the inside. I'm like, holy shit.
It's like giants with their boots on.
Jake.
Oh, no, not Jake. I don't know. I'm still around Jake. And I'm like, look at the size of this guy.
Yeah, Jake's a tall guy, man. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Well, Dustin Rhodes, of course, Dusty's son. And at Uncensored, both Dustin and Barry Darsow are going to get fired when they blade during their match. Dustin recently took to social media and said that he was given permission to blade by Craig Leathers. And he said that WCW is just trying to clear out a few contracts during this period because they were paying so much money to Hogan and his buddies. So you're working with Dustin quite a few times during these days with the company. What did you think of him and his work?
Any of the second generation guys, you know, Dustin grew up in the business. He was good. He was a good wrestler. He knew the psychology. He knew the ring work. He knew how to do the interviews. He was just a good wrestler. He'd been successful, you know. He's just one of those guys. Like Jake grew up in the business. He grew up and he was good. But I never ran with it. That's a different generation. You know, I ran with his dad. That's my line. You know, in the WWF, which was my heyday, I wrestled Dusty, DiBiase, and Orton. In the WCW, I wrestled Dusty's kid, DiBiase's kid, Orton's kid. First, I beat up the old man, then I beat up the kid.
Well, now that you're under a Legends deal, you might just get another shot at Cody. We'll see.
Yeah, I do that with the Rock. I wrestled with the Rock's grandfather. High Chief Peter Maivia. I wrestled with a Rock father, Rocky Maivia, and I make it to Rock at WrestleMania.
All right, let's do it. That's a
no chance in hell, right? Yeah. Rock gets the door for me, Mr. Duggan. Good to see you, sir. I tell you, Rock. He knew me.
Have you spent much time around the Rock, or not so much?
Not much, but enough to visit with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I told you the story. We were at the Superdome years ago at WrestleMania. Me and one of my daughters, Celia and Deborah, were in the bowels of the building heading to the catering. And all of a sudden, they were running Rock from one event to another, and Rock busts through the door to go through the next door. He looks over and goes, "Whoa!" He stops, and they're like, "Oh, look!" He goes, "No, I'm going to say hello to Hacksaw and his family." And he came over, and my daughter's like, "Oh."
Man, good dude. How about that?
Yeah, he was a good dude. He really was. Yeah. And my other daughter didn't come downstairs. She stayed upstairs and watched the show. And she's like, "I didn't meet the Rock."
Oh, she must have been
Not
bummed.
that they ever rubbed it in, right? Daughters. Well, you got what? We got one daughter and a boy, don't you?
I've got 2 little girls. So
you'll know then. That's right. Yes.
Yep. It's me in a house full of girls just like you. So it should be interesting. Couple of years coming up. You'll also be teaming with Stars and Stripes during this period, which is a team of the Patriot and Marcus Bagwell. I guess the pairing makes sense because of the love for USA. I'm curious though. I've heard a lot of mixed things about Marcus Bagwell over the years. What were your experiences like around him?
When he was Marcus Alexander Bagwell, he was great. He was a nice guy, got along with everybody, got along with the fans. Deborah's nephew loved him, had everything. Marcus Alexander Bagwell was the whole Marcus Alexander. It was never Marcus Bagwell, never Bagwell. Marcus Alexander Bagwell. It was a good gimmick,
Yep.
And then all of a sudden that Buff the Stuff thing hit, and he was part of the clique and doing the finger kiss, and the head got bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why he wore such a big hat.
He turned into Buff like for a shoot.
He believed his gimmick, man. He was Buff the Stuff, He really did. He believed his gimmick, and he was a good wrestler and everything. But shit, when you're with the boys, you might want to tone down on your gimmick, brother.
Yeah, the boys tend to be able to sniff out the bullshit a little bit.
Yeah, back in the day, I don't know how it is now. It changed back when they had the wrestler court. All the old timers going, wrestler court. We got a jury of one around here.
Yeah, it used to be, let's settle this. I'll see you in the shower, right?
Shower, of course, that's where Brody got killed in the shower, man. Yeah, a lot of shit happened. That's where Sting and Dick Slater got into it. A lot of shit. Butch Reed and
John Nord.
Berserker. Yeah, John Nord. Yep. Stay out of the shower. Don't go in there.
Even nowadays, I avoided Jim.
Shit in the shower. Right. Yeah. Of course, there'd be lawsuits now and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, the business has changed.
But the old wrestling joke, you're always a phony wrestler until you go to court.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then you
go to court, he goes like this, 10, 20, 30,000. I'm going to sue you. I'm getting my money's worth. We're not done.
Yeah, if we're doing that, then let's
really back in the day. But if you ever get in a real fight and beat somebody up or somebody, or have a fight and exchange, their hands swell up, you can't turn a doorknob. I mean, you can't it's rough on your hands.
Well, and I was told
nowadays, you never fight a guy that knows how to fight. It's like, yeah, I won. It's like that MMA stuff. I was a master ceremony at one up in Montreal. Backstage is like being in a car wreck. Mr. Duggan, I've won.
You sure, man?
Here's $200, kid. Congratulations.
Even nowadays, I know that back in the day, if a fan jumped into the ring, it was kind of like the sharks would swarm and they'd all just the wrestlers would beat the shit out of them. But nowadays, I asked one of my trainers, I was like, hey, if a fan hits the ring, what do I do? They were like, put him in a hold, but don't punch him. You'll get sued, even if he's coming at you. Yeah.
Well, there was a point in bar fights and things changed there somewhere in the 80s. I don't know where it was. The cops would let you go. You get in a bar fight, not get sued. I mean, it was a Wild West for a while. And all of a sudden, things change. I think it was dash cams what started it all. And back in the old days, the cops are like, yeah, get out of here. The guy's a jerk anyway, but yeah.
People started realizing they could make some money off these wrestlers. Like, well, this big tough wrestler beat me up. In the meantime, the guy instigated the fight and took the first swing or whatever.
Yeah, and you got to understand also a lot of the guys. You're coming into a town. You're going to the bar. All the local girls the guy's been hitting on for a while are like, oh, there's Sean, there's Marty, oh, there's Ricky and Robert. They're all over there, and those guys picked up a lot of heat,
The girls weren't saying there's Hacksaw when you were coming to town?
But only when they pull out the mace.
There he is.
I had my niche. I had, I wasn't worried about Sean and Deborah, right? I'm there like Sean, Marty, those guys have shit. Doc, Terry Gordy, big tough guys. I'm like, hey, Deborah, stay away from them.
Keep away from those guys.
The men I was worried about. And like Sean, he's awful pretty. I mean, he certainly is.
Dude, I guess.
Of course, nowadays,
you're the dream
kicks off worse than mine. Shit.
Well, speaking of big guys, Big John Studd is sadly going to pass away during this time. And I know that you spent some time around John during your career. What can you tell us about experiences with him?
I got along with everybody. Got along with John except Andre. And of all the guys not to get along with, right? Take your pick, Andre. And of course, Andre didn't like other giants. Excuse me. But for a long time, it was Haku and Andre against me and John Studd. In tag team action, we did a whole couple of loops around the country, around the world, wrestling each other, I think. And out of those four guys, who's going to spend most of the time in the ring?
Yeah, the Hacksaw.
Me and Haku are young guys. We're out there. We're wrestling. Tag, match over.
Those guys would stand on the apron and get a big pay.
They worked the apron pretty good. I always joke Sergeant Slaughter. He was the best, though. Sarge was the best. They'd be beating the shit out of you. You go over and give Sarge the tag. He'd turn around and go, USA! USA!
I think you said
before the short arm tag, Yeah.
He was your favorite partner, wasn't he, Sarge?
Yeah, I got along good with Sarge. Yeah, because like I said, that's the first major thing I did in wrestling was try to get out of the Cobra Clutch.
Yeah,
this big Jim Duggan, man, Sarge. He put it on me pretty good back then.
You guys made a good pair.
Actually, I'm in his book about where he worked me bowling when he was actually right-handed. I thought he was left-handed, and I bet money. And I was young and dumb, right? And I'm beating his ass. He goes, okay, $20, Doug. And of course, that's a payoff back then. And I had my old Grand Prix with 3 different tires and an odd tire on it. I'm driving Sarge around. $20, all right. Sarge gets up there, and goes, "Oh yeah, I'm right-handed."
Oh no.
I may have been a little naive when I was young.
Damn, Sarge. There's a debut in the WCW at this time, and it's the Renegade. Apparently, Richard Wilson, who portrayed the Renegade, he was an exotic dancer turned wrestler, and Hogan wanted to renew the Ultimate Warrior stuff in WCW, but of course, bringing in Warrior is going to be cost prohibitive. Jim, what did you make of the Renegade in WCW?
He was kind of out there right off the bat.
Yeah,
he was a small guy. He was a short guy. And, he had the Napoleon complex. And just because they put the Warrior gimmick on him, he thought he was the Warrior.
Yeah.
Doesn't work quite that way, And he did have a little bit of an attitude. I understand he killed himself, I believe.
He did. I think it was after his contract expired with WCW. I don't know if he fell on hard times or what, but yeah, it was shortly thereafter.
Well, yeah. Well, the story I heard just now, telephone, telegraph, telewrestler.
Mm-hmm.
It's he was leaving. He had a fight with a girl, and he pulled the gun out and just was walking out, and shot himself quickly without,
Horrible.
spur of the moment type thing.
Horrible. Like, you feel for the guy, obviously. But yeah, I mean, pretty unanimously, anybody who worked around him said like he couldn't work. He's essentially just brought in based on his look. He kind of sort of had a passing resemblance to the Ultimate Warrior, and so that was
But not.
it.
Yeah, he didn't have the body. He didn't have the height. He didn't have the intensity.
Yeah,
Warrior was a jerk. I know that very few guys actually like the Warrior, but you got to give the guy credit. He's on the Mount Rushmore. Warrior was Warrior. He had the look. His interviews, even though nobody knew what the hell he was talking about, they were so intense. His entrance was so intense. You got to put Warrior over, where it's more than just dressing him up and putting some nylon ties on him. The guy.
He had charisma, and DiBiase, every time I bring him up on my podcast with Ted just buries him, just goes off on him. And I'll kind of play devil's advocate and be like, well, when I was a kid, I liked him. He had face paint. He's big and jacked up. He's super excited. It got me excited. But then, as you become an adult, it's like, okay, all right. He's a Corvette with a, Pinto engine under the hood.
Yeah, well, his entrance was the best part of his match,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I was just in Oklahoma City doing a Comic-Con. I don't know how many people came up and they said, "Hacksaw, we love watching you stomp on down to that ring with that flag and the 2x4." That is a big part of it. That's why they emphasize the entrances so much. Michael Hayes, of course, revolutionized that by just putting music to entrances and bringing guys down to music. And now it's evolved to, they spend more. I used to joke they spent more on glaciers, fireworks, and lasers and smoke and every damn thing else. Then they paid me in a year at one show, like 10 minutes of fireworks and shit. And then he comes out and is like, "Yay."
Pretty much.
Nice guy, good guy, but back in the day, now everything evolved. But I used to say, I don't want the fireworks, man. I used to like that pop,
yeah.
But it did. The music just doesn't enhance it, though.
Well, apparently during this time, WCW is going to ask Steve Austin to do a job for the Renegade, and he'll flat out refuse. And Meltzer had this to report about it. Austin became something of a hero, at least to some, if not many, in the dressing room, particularly those around for any length of time. Many are tired of newcomers, and some of whom don't have any talent, that are either ex-WWF characters past their prime or copies of such, beating and burying those who had been around for years but had been shoved aside just as they were entering their wrestling prime. So, Jim, all of that kind of statement and this mentality that I guess Steve and some other guys had during the time, it makes me wonder. Renegade was green as goose shit, and I think a lot of guys resented that he made his way up so quickly just due to this Warrior shit. Do you feel that Steve and others were justified for how they believed?
Well, if you go back to what you were saying about what Meltzer was talking about, the new guys coming in without proving themselves, he also mentioned WWF guys past their prime, which of course takes me and Hogan and Beefcake and all those guys. And yeah, Austin didn't want to put me over neither.
Right.
That's why that famous match where I beat him for the U.S. title is only 30 seconds long, because he went down with a phony injury. He didn't want to give me a match and put me over in a match. He went, "No, I'm hurt." So yeah, he had a reputation of not putting guys over.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the different. That's where you start to see the switch. We're doing a job for the guy and doing a favor for the guy. Where you would just expect it back in the day. But now you're going from one major to the Monday Night Wars. So I guess the business just evolved, and it probably made sense for him, but it didn't do anything for me. Of course, gave me the line, "I beat Austin so bad he had to shave his head and change his name. I beat the hair right off the boy's head. I should get a kickback on this Stone Cold thing." That's the only thing I got out of it, because he didn't really do a good job for me, but I got the belt and everything.
he ended up putting you over a lot on the house shows eventually, and I think
well,
that
he
it
didn't
was
really have a choice. You know,
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
that Stone Cold is a gimmick, brother.
Mhm.
And I'll go back and look at the people he beat up. We don't want to talk about that.
Well, I do have to. I'm curious. So, obviously, you're a guy. You view it as a business, right? And when your boss says put a guy over, you put him over. It's your job. But I'm curious. Was there a time in your career when you were a young guy coming up and you resented some of the veteran guys in the locker room?
No, not really. No, nope. I always, even Bagwell back then talking about the old timers. It's time for those guys to make room for the young talent to come in and take over and show what they can. Pull it from my hands, brother. If you want it, come get it. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I'm holding on to it. This is the way I pay for my family. This is the way I take care of my life. If you want my job, you come get it. I'm not giving it up.
Yep.
And they're like, well, maybe it's time for those guys to move on. Well, maybe if you went out and got a pop out there instead of a polite clap, they keep you around. There's always room for talent, Marcus. I tell you what, people come up, I'm really worried, Hacksaw, I don't, well, if you got over with the people, then they'll keep you. When time's up, they'll flush you down the toilet. Welcome to the big leagues, brother.
That's what this business is. And yeah, to your point, if you don't like the veteran guys, if you're fed up, go out there and get over. Make the most of your spot. Yeah. You're living proof
Take their job. What do you want them to say? Oh, thanks very much. I'm leaving and going home.
Right.
Are you kidding? That's why they brought me back. That's a great example. I'm WWF. I'm Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Boom, boom. I won the first ever Royal Rumble. I'm doing my deal. I knocked Andre the Giant out with my 2x4. I come back in WWE. They got me with Super Crazy teamed up with Eugene. But I'm still making a paycheck. I'm still paying for my family. That's why people say, well, WW or WCW, they were doing you a favor. Vince Russo said, well, I was doing you a favor giving you a job at WCW. Well, funny, when the WCW folds, Russo goes home. His top guy goes home. The other top guy goes home. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, I go up to WWE and have another 4 or 5 year run. Oh!
Just goes, the proof is in the pudding, right?
Sometimes I get excited, Marcus. I'm sorry, brother.
I'm with you, though.
Get a little fired up every once in a while. 71 years old, and every once in a while, Hacksaw, he still gets me in trouble. There we go, baby. Oh! That's one thing about living out in the country, man. Back when I lived with neighbors, people are like, what the hell?
I'm sure I just woke up both my daughters, but it's fine. They'll Piper knows what I'm up to down here. But no,
Piper will be hoeing back at you.
She probably just said it up there. But no, to your point, and a lot of guys that are in that position, they'll bitch about creative and say, well, you tell me to go get over, but they give me shit creative. How am I supposed to go out there and get over? It's like, well, they did make Jim Duggan a janitor, and he still got over with the audience. He breathed new life into Saturday Night with that gimmick. It's like, there's always a way. There's always a way.
Yeah, you can get over. Yeah, of course, go in and you just don't eat a ham sandwich. Put your input in and just don't accept everything. But yeah, you're going to go along with the boss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it. They're in charge. It's like being on the soap opera, and you're the bad guy in the soap opera. You're not going to say, "Well, I want to be the good guy this week," or I don't want that guy to beat me up. I want to beat him up.
Right.
It's like when I first started wrestling, when I'm a young kid, I didn't know that thing. And they're like, Doug, this guy's going to beat you in about 8 minutes. And I'm like, well, I can beat him. I know I can beat him. And of course, the guy I'm working with is going, oh, Jesus, young guy. But anyhow.
A young guy that I was in the locker room with not too long ago, he wasn't happy with what they were doing with him that night. And he was like, what do you think I ought to do? And I was like, I think you ought to just do what they tell you to do. I was like, imagine if you're in a stage play on Broadway and your character's supposed to die and you go to the director and you say, I really don't want my character to die. Like, it's stupid.
So,
it's a job. Yeah.
And what are they thinking next week? They're like, well, this guy asked this guy to do that. And he didn't want to do that. So I know he ain't going to do this. So it hurts business. And a lot of people put that like Owen, God bless him. People say, well, that was like, well, Owen, if you don't do it, somebody else will repel from the ceiling. And Owen's, the story, I already didn't want to do it. And he's like, well, okay, I'll do it. So yeah, if you got to pick and choose, but especially on an indie level, yeah, because you want to be involved next week. If the guy beats you, for the title, you come back next week. I mean, whatever they want you to do.
That's it. Yeah, just especially at this, as you said, at this level, keep your mouth shut. Just do the job, and you'll start to establish goodwill with people. And if you're good enough, you'll get a push.
And do a good job for the guy. Don't go out there and do a half-ass job. You go out, put the guy over strong. That's why I always appreciate Edge doing that great job for me at WWE. And I put him over at the end, but he gave me a great match.
Yes. Yeah, a true professional, and he understands the business. If he just comes out and mops the floor with Hacksaw, then you just beat, you didn't beat
an old man. Yeah.
That
way you beat somebody. Put me over a little bit. Yeah, the old bastard's got one left in him. So when he finally beat me, he beat somebody.
Yeah. Well, you'll be working with Paul Orndorff in a Slim Jim Challenge, which is a tournament being held for a shot at the TV title. Do you remember this?
I think so. Was it with the cars around the ring?
It was outside. Yeah, you guys. It was an outdoor show.
Yes. Oh my God.
What do you remember about it?
I think it was in Charlotte, and
Yes,
early. Okay, they had the WCW race car, and they took us to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And if anybody wanted to get in a race car, they had the tandem race car you could get in. So yeah, it was great. Except I was big back then. I was 300 pounds. I got the helmet. You get in the car like this. I had no respect for race car drivers. We're going around there. Holy shit, But anyway, so we had a whole day or like a whole weekend. I doing all the PR for the show. It's a big show, outdoor show, and everything. And me and Orndorff, we don't work together too much. And they have, they had the TV and they had the two race cars parked, diagonally by the ring. Crowd's going crazy. Orndorff goes down. I come down USA. We're having a match. Bing, bang, boom, beating the hell out of each other. I throw Orndorff out of the ring. I go out there. I pick him up to slam him. I look at him. I go, shit, there's a car. I slammed him on the hood of the race car. Oh my God! Everybody went nuts. I got back to the dressing room. Everybody's excited. Jesus, what the hell, Jesus, guy? What the hell? They had to get it all fixed up and redone for the race, And
oh no!
They had to pull it right away, and I slammed Orndorff on the hood of the car. I figure anything around the ring, and that's move everything. That's what I tell people. The table, the chairs. You're a bull in a china closet. Get out of the way. Boom, tables, chairs, whatever's in the way. A car over here, a chair over there. It made no difference, man. That's Hacksaw Duggan. I'm blowing through and doing my deal. Throwing them on the deal, And I got back like, that's what I told you when I threw the chair in the ring one time. The referee was looking the other way. He wasn't used to working with me, right? I'm storming around the ring, throwing stuff. I grabbed the timekeeper's chair, I throw it in the ring. He went down like a sniper got him.
Gotta keep your head on a swivel.
Then I got in the ring, I got pissed. I'm like, get up, what's wrong with you? Get up. Trying to steal my steam, laying there like you're knocked out. What happened to you?
Oh my. What a hell of a backstory behind the Slim Jim match. I thought it was just like some, inconspicuous match, but here you got a little heat for slamming him on the hood of a race car.
That wasn't a little heat, brother. You kidding? The race car people, the NASCAR people were backstage, the Turner people were backstage, the WCW people, I think, felt like I was back in junior high.
It's kind of on them.
Oh, shit, it's out there. What the hell? Good TV.
They should beforehand if they didn't want to hear it. Well, let's talk about Paul for a minute. During the mid 80s, Paul was arguably the biggest heel in the world, and infamously, he is going to do some nerve damage in his arm, but he's going to continue to work because he's making the town's opposite of Hogan and was printing money. if you take yourself out of the game, you stop getting paid. So Paul knew that, and he ended up doing some permanent damage to his arm, which would wither a little bit due to the damage. So, Jim, I'm curious, do you feel like it impacted Paul's ability to work during this time, or no noticeable?
Oh, sure, yeah. It's a physical business, and I'm all broke to pieces. That's just part of the deal. And the longer you're in the ring, the more you get broke up. And of course, back then you didn't have contracts. If you didn't work, you didn't get paid. So you worked through injury or you worked through pain. You got to know the difference between being hurt and being injured.
Mm-hmm.
Everything hurts. If you're injured, something's not working correctly. You can't walk or something. And that's the old, and it's, like I said, physical business. People say, Hacksaw, I saw you throw a punch. You missed a guy by that much. I said, yeah, but you see, when I hit him by that much, it goes both ways. You're out there throwing stuff. So, yeah, it's a physical business. And, yeah, I think with Paul later on, he was working with Hogan. I never really had an opportunity to work with Hogan on a loop like that. And, yeah, I heard that was people were making, yearly salaries in a week.
Yep. I want to say that, and I don't know this for sure, but the figure I had heard was somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 grand per week making the house shows with Hogan. And if you're making that kind of money, like, how hard would it be to say no to that? It like, I can take 6 months off and heal my arm up and come back good as new, or I can keep making this money.
You're gone. You're gone 6 months. They got to fill your spot for 6 months. So you're gone. Somebody else is in your spot.
Yep. And the fans will miss you, and you might be turned babyface when you come back, and then all of a sudden you lost all these Hogan payoffs.
They miss you till you're gone and somebody else. The king is dead. Hell, the new king. Yeah.
So hard to blame Paul. Hypothetically, Jim, if you felt like maybe you were risking permanent injury, do you think that you would stop wrestling or just stay the course, keep making that money?
Well, like I said, I'm pretty broke up anyway, and I kept going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know if I quit earlier, I got the major injuries, the 4 knee surgeries, the rebuilt shoulder, the tore pec, the Achilles tendon surgeries, the wrist surgeries. I mean, if I had stopped sooner, I wouldn't have had as many injuries.
Yep.
But that's kind of the job description. That's when you see, I'm, like I said, I'm 71. I think Jake's 82. But most of the guys are, everybody's moving around slower than, your joints, knees, elbows, ankles, shoulders are all screwed up on everybody. Yeah.
Especially
when they pick you up in the air, imagine being picked up over somebody's head and slammed down on the mat. People like, does that hurt?
Yeah, it hurts.
You think?
A fan was after the show was asking me like, so does it actually hurt? I took the biggest bump I've ever taken in the last show I was in, and a fan was like, does that hurt? And I was like, look down there, because the young guys were taking apart the ring. I was like, you see that? There's a pad about this thick, and then it's boards, and then it's a metal frame, and that's it.
Yeah. If somebody slams you in the water that hard, it hurts.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a physical business.
Well,
that's why I told you, but Hacksaw, my son wants to be a wrestler. Do you have any advice for him? I said, yes, young guy, get golf clubs.
That's
where the money's at, 4.
You can do it into your 80s.
Yeah, shit. Or become a shooter. We got to go shooting again, Marcus. That was fun.
That was fun, man. I'm going to have to make it my way down to South Carolina one of these days. I think it'd be a good time.
And Mania's in Vegas again.
I heard that. Yes. So we'll catch up there for sure. And
you're always welcome to come down here, man.
Yeah. We'll get with Papa and we'll make it happen, brother. Sounds like a good time. Let's get to the Great American Bash. You're going to take on the undefeated Craig Pittman, and you're going to hand him his first loss at the show, but the loss is a DQ. He's going to refuse to release you from a finishing hold after you make the ropes. So,
that dirty son of a gun.
Best. So he kept his heat, but he suffered his first loss. Let's start here, Jim. What do you think of Craig Pittman as a guy and as a performer?
I like Craig. Yeah, he was an ex-Army or ex-Marine special ranger type guy. He was one of those real deal type guys. He really knew what he was doing. He knew how to kill people. you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Legit
yeah,
badass.
and I got along with him. He was, you know, he's a straight guy. Oh, I'll tell you a story though. They were going to do a photo shoot for him, and he lived somewhere else. I was living in Florida. We are doing our TV at um, MGM Studios in Orlando, and I brought him a shotgun to use in his photo shoot. And he walked into the studios carrying a shotgun and got in all kinds of trouble. Yeah, and I got the shotgun back. I don't remember how I ever got that shot. I figured it had been confiscated, but yeah, but he didn't last long. He was a nice guy and everything, and yeah, they were trying to put the. He was working. He was an army guy, I think, and he was working the army gimmick. But
They were trying to strap the rocket ship to him with this undefeated streak there for a while, and then it's like I don't know. I told you about what was happening during this time offline, and I compared it to kissing your cousin, where it's like, yay, Jim ends the undefeated streak, but it's a DQ.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. Fans make a lot out of undefeated streaks, and the right way for them to end, and a DQ loss doesn't feel like the right approach to me. But what's your take on it, Jim?
well, I think they saw that he wasn't going to go as high, no matter how much gas they put on him. There's an example where, you know, some guys they don't put any gas on, and they guys machos cream rises to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy they pushed another. He was a nice guy, Glacier, nice guy. They put a lot of gas on him, pushed him hard, didn't work. Renegade, we were talking earlier, they put all kinds of gas on him, pushed him hard as can be. It didn't work. And then you see other guys that you know you wouldn't expect, and all of a sudden, yes, yes, yes. Oh crap! What the hell? How did that work? You know.
You just never know what's going to get over, right?
You never know. People just have the right combination. You know, football, basketball, if you have a certain skill set, you got a good chance of making it. Has no formula for wrestling.
And you see all these guys that are just physical freaks, have the great bodies, great look, and even some charisma, but for whatever reason, maybe the fans just don't buy it. You'll see like a guy like Bryan Danielson. He's 5'9", 5'10", and over like Rover. So it's just, man, you're right. There's no formula.
Yeah. Yep. No formula at all. And then
Well,
other guys like the big Scotsman, what's his name? WWF.
Sheamus. Or
No, not
no, Drew
Sheamus. The
McIntyre.
current
Drew McIntyre.
McIntyre.
Yeah.
There's a guy that's worked hard, paid his dues, set up chairs, set up the ring. I remember going over to Europe and working over there, and him just being like a jabroni boy around. Then went back years later. He's working on the shows. Boom, boom. Good to see a guy like that make it. He really paid his dues, worked hard, and is doing a good job, man. Yeah, he's a hell of a talent, and he deserves it.
And has he put the effort in the gym? You know, he always had a good body, like whenever he first debuted, but then just took it to the next level whenever he left the company for a while and came back, and just big as a house, like a great promo. He's one of those guys. He checks every single box.
Yeah, well, like I said, he's worked hard. Yeah, he wasn't you know, one of those guys that boom got the push right away. He worked his way up. So
Earned
that's
it.
encouraging is to see a guy that is doing the indies to look at him and say, well, shit, if he can make it, I can make it.
You just never know, man.
But
Keep
he's a
putting
hell of
your
a talent. Though. He's a hell of a guy. Yeah.
Now, that's going to wrap us up for the main subject. But before I let you go, Jim, I did want to talk to you about something else
Yeah,
that
are you
happened.
kidding, brother? That was quick, quick, man.
This was an
And
easy
usually
one.
you're doing a show with he's like pulling teeth. Holy shit.
I normally try to force Jim to go 3-4 hours, but we'll take it easy today. But
Telling my wife. Thanks, brother.
It took me a sec, Jim.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened since the last time you and I spoke or had an opportunity to discuss it was that a wrestling legend passed away. Sabu passed away. A hardcore legend, ECW guy, did some stuff with WCW too. And Jim, I just wanted to ask you, did you get to know Sabu very well?
Not very well at all. Never worked with. I did work with him a little bit, but didn't spend much time with him. But I knew I got to know him a little bit on the Comic-Con wrestling convention circuit, and his wife and Deborah were friends, and we're not friends, but we're acquaintances, and always talked to each other. And when she passed away, his wife, he took it. It really had an effect on him. So he's like one of those guys I think that just followed the wife up to heaven.
Man, feel for the guy, and a lot of people were making a lot of him, at his last match, which was in Las Vegas over WrestleMania weekend. He worked, Jim, I was there for it, and he worked a very, very physical match against Joey Janela. He was taking bumps that after one, I was like, well, the match is over. You can't get up after that bump. He got back up, finished the match. And I don't know, like a lot of people were trying to make a lot of it and say that, GCW, which is the promotion, had something to do with his passing, but I don't know. It's I think that he was still out making some towns in between then and when he passed away. So, it's a hard business, hard on your body, right?
It's a physical. Have they come up with a cause of death yet?
No, it hasn't been revealed as of this recording.
Yeah, I wonder what the cause of death was. Because I know he was heartbroken. He's been heartbroken after his wife passed.
Yeah,
and he's like Mick. I saw Mick in Oklahoma City, and Mick looks great. Lost a lot of weight, moving good, but they just sacrificed their bodies, jumping off shit. I jumped off the bottom rope a couple times.
Mick was infamously taking the Nestea plunge, which is where you're standing on the outside of the apron and you take a bump to the floor. And this is when Bill Watts was running WCW. So there were no mats on the floor either. So he's taking a bump from the apron down onto the floor in concrete. Brother, you don't get many of those. That'll take a few off your bump card.
Yeah, well, Mick, he goes, Hacksaw, a lot of people mistake me for you. And I'm like, geez, I hope not.
I'm still moving around all right, Mick. Come on.
And he's 12 years younger than me. But yeah, Mick and Sabu were known for sacrificing their bodies, man. And that's just not on the big shows. That's what the young guys that do that crazy stuff, they save it for the big show, save it for a pay-per-view. Sabu, Mick, they were doing house shows.
Yep, they put on some hard miles. And before we end it, I did want to ask too. Sabu's uncle was the Sheik, and a lot of people say that he was kind of the innovator of hardcore wrestling, the original Sheik. And I'm wondering, Jim, he was out of Detroit. Did you ever get to work with Sheik, or were you around him?
No, never met the man. No, I broke in. I always worked in the South. Broke in Dallas. Worked with Southwest in San Antonio with Joe Blanchard, Georgia Championship, Pensacola, Hawaii, and New York. Those are my territories.
Okay.
Never worked up north. Never worked in Oregon. Never worked for Gagne. Never over in Detroit.
Well, who knows, Jim? If you'd crossed paths with him, maybe you would have been one of these deathmatch guys, right?
No. Well, I don't know. Back in the day, brother, I mean, you look at me and Buzz Sawyer in those dog collar matches. They're as hardcore as any hardcore match there. Back in the day, the coal miners' glove matches, it was Mid-South.
Was it Barry Darso?
It was kind of hardcore before ECW. That's where you lost a bar fight, you got fired. That's where the fans, we were talking about fans hitting the ring. Back then, I told you I was a heel. I'm in Sam Houston Coliseum. I'm beating the hell out of Ricky Morton. All of a sudden, I get hit in the back of the head. I turn around, there's a big, tall, skinny cowboy. I'm like,
gotcha.
So I start working on him. Security, they got him. They're trying to pull him out of the ring. I'm at the Sam Houston Coliseum. I'm a bad guy. I'm like, no. He's with me. I'm like a lion pulling him back in the cage, man. Shit starts flying in the ring. You don't see that, but chairs come flying in the ring. A wrestling riot back in the day, but you're having a good match.
Yeah, man, you're doing something right if you can get the fans that worked up. Boy, picturing you, Jim, as a deathmatch guy, I couldn't really picture it, but now that you're saying it, you were kind of doing that stuff in Mid-South. Some really
Mid-South was wide open. Yeah, that was they had some live stuff down there. They sure did. And that's why it was such a popular territory. And plus you learned your trade. You'd wrestle 9 times a week, every week, 9 times. Because you double shot on Saturday, double shot on Sunday, and you would do an individual interview for every city. You wouldn't do one generic interview. So you learned how to talk on the mic. You learned how to wrestle. You learned how to travel. You learned different gimmicks. A lot of Hall of Fame guys came out of Mid-South.
Man, you guys were getting your reps back in those days. Nowadays
but we're
the
all a
indie.
bunch of young guys. You have 3 or 4 guys in the car. Hey, how about if I try this and you do that? Hey, that sounds good. Hey, the strip joint.
It was the Wild West, that's for damn sure. Well, look, folks, thank you so much for listening. But I do want to say before you go, Father's Day is coming up. And if you're tired of getting your old man the same old bullshit, a tie or a card or whatever, right above me over here, there's a QR code for Cameo. You can go to cameo.com/Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and you can get a personal message for the old man straight from Hacksaw.
Well,
Or right above
I'm telling you, Marcus, you can get your dad a really nice little hoe for Father's Day.
a hoe for father. What father wouldn't want that?
Kind of like you in Vegas. Oh, well, never mind.
Right. Oh, no, my wife is home. Let's be careful.
There's a joke there, but I won't.
I did leave that one wide open, didn't I?
Yeah, I thought I recognized her from Vegas. Wait.
I brought her home with me.
Yeah.
Above Jim's head is a QR code for hacksawjimdugganshop.com. You can get signed merchandise straight from Hacksaw, including a signed 2x4. Look at that. Or the picture. Man, that 2x4, what a cool centerpiece for a wrestling collection, though, right, Jim?
And watch out for splinters. They give you a hole.
You're going to end up with the thumb, just like Jim, so be careful. But yeah, make Father's Day something special, and we'll have a special episode of the Hacksaw Hour here in a couple weeks with a Hacksaw mailbag, right, brother?
Well, yes, we could have talked another 10 minutes before you started wrapping us up, Marcus. If you want to leave, just tell me, buddy. I got feelings too. I got feelings. Bigger guys have bigger feelings. We have larger nerve endings. We actually hurt more.
All right, you guys heard it. Jim and I are going for another 2 hours. Let's get into it, brother.
No, brother, I'll talk to you later.
We'll see you guys next time on the Hacksaw Hour.
Oh, thanks, folks.